In 1497, an explorer traveled from Spain to India in just 23 days. Today, we will take his journey. But before that, don't forget to subscribe for notifications of all our future videos. Also, press the bell icon for getting notifications of all our future videos. Our story starts in Spain in 1497. Here in this small village lived a young man named Vasco. Vasco was an explorer who dreamed of traveling the world. He had heard stories of far-off lands and people from merchants who traveled by sea, and he wanted to see these places for himself. When Vasco was 20 years old, he decided to make his dream come true. He built a boat and set sail for India. The journey took him through the Atlantic Ocean and around the tip of Africa. Vasco and his crew were lucky to have favorable winds that helped them travel quickly. They also had plenty of food and water, which kept them healthy during the journey. Throughout the journey, Vasco and his crew encountered many challenges. They faced rough seas and storms that threatened to capsize their boat, but they were able to stay afloat and keep moving forward. Vasco also had to deal with the stress of not knowing what lay ahead. He didn't know if he would find land or if he and his crew would get lost at sea. But despite all these challenges, Vasco never gave up. He kept sailing until he finally reached India. After 23 days at sea, Vasco and his crew arrived in India. They had successfully completed the first voyage from Europe to India. This was a remarkable achievement as it had never been done before. When Vasco reached India, he was greeted as a hero. The local ruler was very happy to see him and he offered him many gifts, including gold, spices, and fabrics. Vasco was also given a noble title and was invited to stay in India as long as he wanted. But after a few months, Vasco decided to return home. He had seen enough of India and wanted to share his experiences with the world. When Vasco returned to Spain, he was celebrated as a national hero. The King of Spain was very proud of him and he was given a grand welcome. Vasco's journey had not only opened up a new trade route to India, but had also expanded the knowledge of the world. He had proved that the earth was round and that there were many lands beyond Europe. After his journey, Vasco continued to explore the world. He made several other voyages to different parts of the world, including Africa and the Americas. He discovered many new lands and helped to expand the knowledge of the world. Now let's see some interesting facts about Vasco's journey. Vasco da Gama was the first European to reach India by sea. He completed the journey in just 23 days, which was a remarkable achievement at the time. Vasco's journey was funded by the Portuguese king, Manuel I. The Portuguese king wanted to establish a direct trade route to India, because at that time, the only way to reach India was through land, which was a long and difficult journey. Vasco used advanced navigation techniques such as using the stars to navigate and using a compass to keep him on course. He also had a team of experienced sailors and navigators, who helped him along the way. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to reach India by sea in 1498. This opened up a new trade route between Europe and Asia and led to the Age of Discovery. Vasco da Gama became a national hero in Portugal and was celebrated for his incredible achievement. Vasco da Gama's journey to India was a total game-changer in world history. Seriously, it flipped trade on its head, kicked off a wave of exploration, and shook up power dynamics in Europe. It really left a huge mark on our history. This journey also kicked off the Age of Discovery, a time from the 15th to 17th centuries when European explorers were all over the place, discovering new lands and cultures. Vasco's trip was like the first big step in that adventure. Another huge impact. It led to the decline of the Italian trading cities like Venice, Genoa, and Pisa. They used to be the main hubs for trade between Europe and Asia. But once Vasco found that sea route, they kinda lost their edge. And let's not forget how it helped Portugal rise as a world power. After Vasco's successful trip, the Portuguese king, Manuel I, grabbed a monopoly on trade with India, bringing in tons of wealth and making Portugal a major player on the world stage. In a nutshell, Vasco da Gama's journey to India was a game-changer in world history. It reshaped trade, sparked exploration, and changed the power dynamics in Europe, leaving a lasting mark on human history. Vasco da Gama's journey to India was a total game-changer in world history. Seriously, it flipped trade on its head, kicked off a wave of exploration, and shook up power dynamics in Europe. It really left a huge mark on our history. This journey really kicked off the Age of Discovery, right? We're talking about an exciting time from the 15th to the 17th centuries when European explorers were just everywhere, uncovering new lands and cultures like it was their job. Oh wait, it kinda was. Vasco da Gama's trip was like the first big leap into that thrilling adventure. Can you imagine the excitement of setting sail into the unknown? It opened up trade routes, introduced exotic spices, and even changed how people viewed the world. Explorers like Columbus and Magellan followed in his footsteps, leading to a whole new era of exploration and cultural exchange. It was a wild time that reshaped history. Another huge impact, it really shook things up for the Italian trading cities like Venice, Genoa, and Pisa. These places were once the bustling heart of trade between Europe and Asia, right? But once Vasco da Gama discovered that sea route to India, they kind of lost their spark. Imagine the vibrant markets and the rich cultural exchanges that were happening there. And then boom, the focus shifted. Suddenly, these cities, which had been thriving for centuries, saw a decline as trade routes changed. It's wild to think how one discovery could flip the script for entire cities. Portugal really made waves as a world power, right? After Vasco da Gama's epic journey to India, King Manuel I didn't waste any time. He snatched up a monopoly on trade with India, which meant loads of wealth started pouring in. This wasn't just about money. It transformed Portugal into a major player on the global stage, allowing them to influence politics and culture far beyond their borders. Imagine the bustling ports and the excitement of merchants bringing exotic spices and goods. It was a game changer for the entire country, putting Portugal on the map like never before. Vasco da Gama's journey to India was a total game changer in world history. Seriously, it flipped trade on its head and opened up new routes that connected Europe to Asia. This wasn't just about spices and silk, it sparked a wave of exploration that had everyone racing to claim new lands. Imagine the excitement and tension as nations scrambled for power. It really shook up the dynamics in Europe, making Portugal a major player in global trade. It left a huge mark on our history. You know, this journey was like the start of a new chapter that changed everything. Then there's the Columbian Exchange, which was a huge deal. It was all about the transfer of plants, animals, cultures, and ideas between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. This exchange changed diets and lifestyles on both sides. For instance, when potatoes and tomatoes made their way from the Americas to Europe, they really helped improve European diets and fight famine. Meanwhile, horses and cattle from Europe transformed life for indigenous peoples in the Americas and helped Europeans conquer new territories. Vasco's trip also opened up new trade routes between Europe and Asia, sparking a boom in global trade. This meant more goods and ideas were flowing between these regions, leading to the rise of new merchant classes in Europe and a whole lot of wealth for European nations. On the flip side, the Ottoman Empire, which had been a major player in the Middle East, started to decline as trade routes shifted away from them. Plus, with all these new lands and trade routes popping up, European powers began to clash, leading to rivalries that sparked wars like the 7 Years' War and the Napoleonic Wars. On the flip side, the Ottoman Empire, which had been a major player in the Middle East, started to decline as trade routes shifted away from them. Plus, with all these new lands and trade routes popping up, European powers began to clash, leading to rivalries that sparked wars like the 7 Years' War and the Napoleonic Wars. Vasco da Gama's journey was a total game changer, right? It kicked off a chain of events that reshaped world history in ways we still feel today. Seriously, it opened up new trade routes and connected cultures like never before. Vasco da Gama's journey was a total game changer, right? It kicked off a chain of events that reshaped world history in ways we still feel today. Seriously, it opened up new trade routes and connected cultures like never before. That was the story of how Vasco reached India in just 23 days. If you liked the story, then press the like button. Now don't forget to subscribe for more updates.